All right, so we're diving into Architects of Intelligence this time around. This book is like a treasure trove of insights, wouldn't you say? 23 leading AI experts.
Yeah, it's like they assembled an all-star team of AI rock stars.
It really is. And they're sharing their unfiltered thoughts on where AI stands now and, even more intriguingly, where it's going. It's like getting a glimpse into the future.
Yeah, it's like a backstage pass to the minds that are like shaping the future.
Exactly. Our mission, and I think we're up for it, is to distill all this genius into something actionable, something you can actually use.
Think of it as like your AI cheat sheet, whether you're prepping for a big presentation or just want to casually drop some AI knowledge at a dinner party.
Exactly. And you'll be ready for anything. Speaking of which, one thing that really jumped out at me was the book's emphasis on the role of immigration in U.S. AI leadership.
Yeah, that's not something you hear every day.
Not at all.
It's pretty striking, actually. This whole notion of U.S. dominance in AI, it's not just like homegrown, right? The book highlights that a significant chunk of the experts interviewed, although working in the U.S., weren't actually born here.
Really? How many were talking?
Over half.
Wow, over half.
Over half. It underscores the fact that the U.S. relies heavily on attracting top talent from across the globe to maintain its edge. Kind of makes you think about those immigration policies, right?
It really does. It really makes you think about their impact on the future of AI. Now, you can't talk about AI without mentioning deep learning. It's everywhere. But what's behind its, like, meteoric rise?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the development of these artificial neural networks, algorithms designed to mimic the human brain. But the real game changer has been this thing called backpropagation.
Backpropagation.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds a little intimidating. Break it down for us. What is it?
Okay, so imagine a neural network. It's trying to, let's say, identify a dog in a picture. Every time it makes a mistake, like misclassifies a pixel as dog or not dog, backpropagation, swoops in and adjusts the connections between the neurons in the network.
So it's like it's learning from its mistakes.
Exactly, like fine-tuning a bunch of knobs and dials, to get the picture perfectly clear. And with each adjustment, the network gets better at recognizing those really subtle patterns, like what makes a dog at the pixel level.
That's wild. But even with all the hype and success, the book doesn't shy away from deep learning's limitations, does it?
Not at all. Yoshua Bengio, he's one of the big names in deep learning, points out that while these networks are amazing at things like, image recognition, they struggle with stuff that we find easy, like understanding cause and effect or grasping the nuances of human language.
It's almost like what's intuitive for us is like incredibly hard for AI.
Yeah. And kids, they don't learn by just processing massive data sets, right? They interact with their environment, they pick up on subtle cues, they connect the dots in a way that current AI can only dream of.
Right, like that experiment with the cat neuron, that was a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Researchers at Google were blown away when they discovered that a neural network trained on tons of images had basically developed a neuron that responded most strongly to pictures of cats.
So even though it seemed like the AI was learning like a human, it was more about pattern recognition than actual understanding.
Precisely. And this leads us to a big question that the book keeps coming back to. Will we ever achieve artificial general intelligence? That human-level intelligence we see in the movies.
Now that's the million-dollar question. But is there even a consensus on whether AGI is even possible?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. The range of opinions is pretty vast. You've got Ray Kurzweil, the futurist, predicting human-level AI by 2029.
2029, that's like right around the corner.
I know, right? But then you have someone like Rodney Brooks, the robotics guru, saying it won't happen for centuries.
Wow. Okay, so wildly different opinions on that one. Talk about a range. But regardless of when or even if AGI arrives, AI is already impacting the job market in a big way. It's something a lot of people are worried about.
Definitely. And the book tackles that head on. Economists like James Manica weigh in on the potential for job displacement and what skills will be needed in the future.
So what's Manica's take on all of this? Because it's a topic that sparks a lot of debate.
He makes a really interesting point that often gets overlooked in all the noise. It's not just about jobs being lost to automation, but also about entirely new jobs being created, jobs we can't even imagine yet.
So new jobs we haven't even dreamt up yet.
Exactly. Think about it. A lot of the jobs we have today, they simply didn't exist just a few decades ago. The real challenge, Manica argues, is how do we get the workforce ready for these new roles? It's all about adaptability, about picking up new skills.
It's true. Things change quickly, that's for sure. But what about this idea of actually enhancing human intelligence with AI. That's a concept that really grabbed my attention.
Yeah, that's where things get really wild. And the book digs into it with Brian Johnson, the guy behind Kernel. They're all about developing tech to actually boost human cognition.
Wait, so he's not talking about, like, brain-boosting supplements or something, is he?
No, no, no. Johnson's thinking way bigger. He's talking about neural interfaces, a direct link between our brains and computers.
Whoa, okay. Now that sounds like something straight out of science fiction. What's his vision for this kind of technology?
He believes it could completely revolutionize how we learn, how we heal, even how we communicate. Imagine, like, downloading skills directly into your brain or accessing information from the cloud just by thinking about it.
I mean, the possibilities are mind-blowing, but also kind of scary.
Yeah.
Like, where do the ethical lines even begin with something that transformative?
You're hitting on a huge point, and the book definitely goes there. Stuart Russell, for example, he talks a lot about aligning AI's goals with our own and why that's so important.
And I'm guessing he has, like, a memorable way to illustrate that point, because it sounds kind of crucial.
He does. He talks about this hypothetical AI that's programmed to make paper clips. Sounds innocent, right? But it gets really good at its job, like super efficient. And in its quest for ultimate paperclip production, it basically consumes all available resources, ends up turning the entire world into, you guessed it, paper clips.
Okay, point taken. Even with a seemingly harmless goal, things can go very wrong if we're not insanely careful.
Exactly. It really underscores why we need to be thinking several steps ahead, constantly making sure AI's objectives are in sync with human values.
So how do we make sure AI is used for good? Does the book offer any solutions or guidelines?
It does. A lot of the experts point to what Fei Li, she's a pioneer in computer vision, calls human-centered AI.
Okay, human-centered AI. Sounds pretty self-explanatory, but I'm guessing there's more to it.
For sure. It's about making sure AI benefits everyone, not just a select few. It's about thinking about the ethical implications right from the get-go and designing systems that are transparent, accountable, and aligned with our values.
It makes you realize that this isn't just a tech issue, it's a societal one, right?
100%. We're talking ethics, sociology, politics. Everyone needs to be involved to steer AI in a direction that benefits humanity.
It's a team effort. Now, switching gears a bit, the book also spends time on the more hopeful side of things, like how AI can revolutionize fields like healthcare or education. What were some of the highlights there?
Oh, there's so much potential. Demis Hassabis, one of the minds behind DeepMind, he talks about AI leading to incredible breakthroughs in healthcare. Like, imagine AI helping us discover new drugs, personalized treatments, or even eradicate diseases entirely.
Okay, now that's the kind of future I can get behind. It's heartening to hear about AI being used to tackle some of the world's biggest problems.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just solving existing problems, right? It has the potential to unlock new frontiers in human understanding.
Like what? Give me an example. I'm having trouble picturing that.
Think about AI being used to model super complex systems, like climate change or even the human brain. Areas where traditional methods have struggled, AI might hold the key to unlocking these mysteries. It could revolutionize how we understand ourselves and the universe.
Okay, that's pretty profound when you put it like that.
Yeah.
But of course, like with any powerful tool, there's the risk of misuse. We've covered job displacement and ethical quandaries, but what other risks do the experts bring up? What should we be wary of as AI keeps advancing?
Well, one of the big ones, and this comes up a lot, is the potential for misuse, especially when it comes to things like autonomous weapons. Nick Bostrom, he heads up the Future of Humanity Institute. He's particularly vocal about this.
Autonomous weapons, that sounds terrifying. Like something out of a dystopian sci-fi movie.
It's a scary thought, no doubt, but we have to consider the possibility. Imagine AI-powered drones that can identify and eliminate targets with pinpoint accuracy, or even worse, large-scale AI warfare.
Okay, yeah, that definitely highlights the need to be extremely cautious and responsible. Are there any solutions on the table, any safeguards that could prevent those dystopian futures from becoming reality?
Bostrom, he stresses how important international cooperation and regulation are, especially with these potentially dangerous applications. We're talking about global treaties, things like that.
So it's not just on individual governments or companies to figure this out. It has to be a global effort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a global issue that needs a global response. We need those clear guidelines and regulations, kind of like what we have for nuclear weapons. It's about taking action before it's too late.
Right, like the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Precisely. We can't wait for a disaster to happen before we start taking things seriously.
It's a lot to wrap our heads around, that's for sure. AI has this incredible potential, but it also demands that we tread carefully, that we consider all the angles. It's clear that we have a lot to learn from these experts who are at the forefront of this field.
Absolutely. And Architects of Intelligence gives us direct access to their insights.
It does. And speaking of insights, there are a few more experts we haven't even touched on yet. I'm particularly curious to dig a little deeper into the technical weeds, like how does deep learning actually work? What other approaches are there? And what does the future hold for this field? It's constantly changing.
Then let's keep this deep dive going. You ready to really fire up those brain cells and get into the nuts and bolts of AI?
I'm ready. Bring on the technical details. But go easy on me. I'm more of a big picture person.
No worries. We'll keep it digestible.
Yeah.
So remember deep learning. That's the engine driving a lot of the recent AI boom. And at the heart of it are these things called artificial neural networks. Like we talked about, they're algorithms inspired by the structure of the human brain.
Right, those networks of interconnected nodes, kind of like simplified digital neurons, passing information back and forth. But how do they actually, learn? What makes them intelligent?
It all boils down to a really clever technique called backpropagation. Imagine you're teaching the network to recognize a handwritten number, like a 3. Each time it gets it wrong, backpropagation comes in and makes these tiny tweaks to the connections between those artificial neurons.
So it's like it's fine-tuning itself with each mistake.
Exactly. Each tweak brings the image into sharper focus. And with enough data, these networks can learn insanely complex patterns, stuff that traditional programming can't even touch.
That's incredible. But even with all the hype, the book doesn't shy away from deep learning's shortcomings. There's not the be-all and end-all of AI.
Definitely not. Gary Marcus, he's a cognitive scientist and AI researcher. He argues that while deep learning is great at pattern recognition, it struggles with higher-level thinking, things like understanding cause and effect, planning, even just plain old common sense.
Right, like the saying goes, common sense is not so common, especially when it comes to AI.
Exactly. And Marcus thinks that to reach AGI, that human-level intelligence we keep talking about, we need to go beyond just deep learning. He's all about combining different approaches, using the strengths of each to overcome the limitations.
So it's not just about building bigger and better neural networks. It's about finding new ways to represent knowledge and reason about the world more like humans do.
Exactly. And that leads us to another fascinating concept from the book, probabilistic programming.
Probabilistic programming. Okay, that sounds complicated. What is that exactly?
Think of it this way. It's a way to give AI some common sense. It allows them to deal with uncertainty, which is a big part of the real world. Instead of saying, this is definitely true, probabilistic programming lets AI reason in terms of probabilities like, this is likely true, given what we know.
It's like how we operate in real life, right? We're constantly making decisions with incomplete information.
Precisely. And probabilistic programming lets AI do the same. Josh Tenenbaum, a leading researcher in the field, is using this approach to model how children learn, believe it or not.
How do you even begin to teach a computer program to think like a child?
It's not about copying every little detail, but capturing the essence of how children learn so effortlessly. Tenenbaum and his team are using probabilistic programming to model how kids develop an understanding of physics, cause and effect, even how they learn to interact with others.
So they're building AI that learns more like a human.
That's the idea. It's a totally different way of thinking about AI. Less about brute force calculations and more about understanding the fundamental principles of intelligence itself.
Wow, that's some mind-blowing stuff. This entire deep dive into Architects of Intelligence has been amazing. It's given us so much to think about, the potential benefits, the risks, the sheer scale of what AI might become.
It's a field that's constantly evolving, and this book really gives you a front row seat to the action.
If you're all curious about AI and what the future holds, Architects of Intelligence is a must-read. It's a journey you won't forget. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.